The learning outcome for this module is to understand how to present more powerfully. That is, to reduce your anxiety and to improve your performance when public speaking or giving presentations. Let's get started.
Right now we're going to talk about the action steps to overcome anxiety and improve your skills in public speaking or giving presentations. First, you need to manage your fear. We all know public speaking is a common fear, and yet it remains a common practice. Jerry Seinfeld once said that at a funeral, the average person would rather be in a casket than deliver the eulogy. There's ways that you can curb your fear by changing what you're focusing on and changing your physiology. For example, if you go into a presentation and your focus is that you're scared, you're anxious, you're nervous, and you're convinced you're just going to bomb it, and you look down, you got your hands in your pockets, and you sort of shuffle along and you talk kind of mumblish. That's your physiology. Your audience is going to pick up on your fear. Instead, force yourself to think about the situation more positively. And, for example, use an incantation that's going to focus you in a different way. Something like, I'm passionate about this topic, and know that even if I stumble on a few words or if I, make a few mistakes, people are going to be very interested in what I have to say. This is a way to focus. And also, you want to use confident body language and physiology. This is things such as looking at the audience, standing still rather than pacing back and forth, and using your hands to gesture so that you're keeping your audience engaged. You should do these things even if you have to fake it, because if you have to fake it, get through it a couple of times and it's going to become more natural and it won't be faking it anymore. Another great way to manage fear is to practice a simple breathing exercise before you get out there and do your presentation. Breathe in deeply through your nose and out through your mouth for 3 slow counts each time, and just do that for 30 seconds or so, and you're going to notice that your fear is minimized. Next, when you're delivering your speech, think about dividing it in 3 parts: open, elaborate, close. First, in your opening, state your main idea and the main purpose of your speech. You want to say something compelling in the first 30 seconds that you're speaking to the crowd. So you can use a story or use a shocking statistic or ask a question, use a quote. Do something that engages your audience and brings them into the conversation. Next, elaborate on your main point. You should generally limit any message to 3 to 5 key points. Otherwise, your speech will just essentially become confusing to the audience. Be concrete, use examples, and practice, the transitions that you're going to use to move from one point to another. Last, make sure that you have a closing that's bold and confident. Don't just sort of trail off at the end and say, thank you, and blah, blah, blah. But provide a summary of what you've said, tie it back to your opening, go over the main points that you elaborated upon very specifically, and then give people a call to action. Challenge them to do something differently because of the information that you've just provided them. The next key step to being able to present powerfully is to know your audience. You should know your audience and understand their expectations. And you can think of each group as having its own unique personality. If you're presenting for a board of directors, you're going to do something much different than if you're presenting for your family, or if you're presenting for on a stage in front of 1,000 people. You want to ask yourself what these people want. What do they want to get out of your presentation? Do you think that the audience is actually truly interested, or is it required that they be there, or is it sort of a nice to have for them? What kind of presentation are you looking for? Is this a discussion? Is it a workshop? Is it a lecture? What do they expect you to look like? Who do they expect you to be? You should find out what your audience wants to know and their background from somebody who's in the group. Somebody who's you expect to be in the audience. And whatever group it is, you should meet them on their level. If you're walking into a board of directors, act like their peer. Not necessarily as one of the board, but be on that same level of discourse. At the same time, if it's a team meeting, with a team that's fairly informal, don't approach it like it's a board of director meeting. It's always best to keep things simple and make sure that you define all technical jargon that you're going to say, especially if you're speaking to an audience that may not understand that jargon. Finally, make sure that your rapport with an audience begins the moment that you're in the room. So don't think that it's just when you're up in the front of the room or on the stage giving the presentation. As soon as you walk in the room, smile, shake hands with people, interact with them, and learn their names. And the people that you interact with before your presentation, call them out during the presentation and interact with them. The next key action is to make sure you keep people interested during your presentation. You can maintain your audience's attention. You can use things like analogies or stories or humor or quotations or shocking stories. And I've often found it's great to ask questions to inspire thought. In order to get your message across to each individual, try to present the data that you're putting out there in different ways to accommodate different learning styles. So you want to speak about the data for people who are auditory learners. You want to present the data visually for people who are visual learners, and maybe you want to come up with some kinesthetic way for people who are kinesthetic learners. You can also create activities that demonstrate your point, so your audience will get your point without you actually telling it to them. And remember, when you're using a presentation, never read off the presentation. Use bullets and very short sentences, and then elaborate upon those sentences. Your presentation that's up on the board is merely a guide for the presentation that you are giving to the audience as the speaker. A great way to think about this is to pretend that each word on a PowerPoint presentation costs you $20. And very quickly you see how expensive those presentations can get. And of course, when you're up there presenting, be enthusiastic, be passionate. If you're not going to be enthusiastic and passionate about it, you might not be the correct person to be presenting this information. A last thing to think about when you're trying to present to improve your public speaking and presentation style is to make sure that you understand your strengths, but you also need to understand your weaknesses. So get feedback. Videotape yourself. Watch it with somebody that you trust and discuss what you see, or get outside help from Toastmasters or from someone else who you think is a great presenter. Ask them questions like, what did I do well? Was your main point clear? Did you speak simply enough? Were you engaging? Did you run out of time? Most importantly, look for constant improvement. Presenting in public is a special skill to have, and it sets you apart from the crowd of people who are uncomfortable in this situation. The more comfortable that you are able to do it, the more likely you are that you're going to be a solid leader or manager for your team.
We hope that you found this module on presenting powerfully very useful. Remember, there's a complete transcript of this video below, and there's downloadable takeaways that you can use offline. Also, please leave us a comment about how you're presenting more powerfully today, or just leave us a comment about how we can make this section better. Thanks.